this took place in 2016, actually 2017, right after the 2016 election. There was a big push for every state, all 50 states, to improve their cybersecurity and awareness due to potential Russia meddling in the election, or claims that there was. And so at the time I was working at Apple, working on the front end of apple.com. Really enjoyed that. And I was also at the time still in the National Guard. So I got a call saying, hey, we need you to come to Sacramento and we're going to do this cybersecurity thing. So at the time I didn't know anything about cybersecurity, but I still went down there, and the list of requirements that I needed were like 4 pages long. And I said, hey, there's only this one page here that I really know. And they said, that's fine. We're going to have contractors from all these different security agencies come in. They're going to train you guys, and then you guys are then going to go off and build the next generation of cybersecurity for the state. And so I said, okay. So I joined, went through the training process, all that stuff. So then it got time to where we needed to implement these things, and we need to start collecting data so we could analyze it and let other agencies know that either they were compromised or we saw some type of traffic. But the most interesting thing is when we were there, the state had no security. They had an IPS system and an IDS system that was probably from 2004, something like that. It's really old. It was only able to support, I think, 10 gigs a second. They had 4 of those, so about 40 gigs a second. So a lot of the traffic even just bypassed through because it wasn't able to inspect it, so it just dropped the traffic. There was no standard endpoint security protection system on any of the host machines. There was no centralized authentication management. And so we had this big thing where we only saw a subset of traffic coming in. We had no way of being able to do deeper inspections outside of whatever that tool gave us. So we learned that there was a lot of gaps and a lot of things that we didn't know. And from the data that we did get from the IPS, it did appear that, there was some adversaries in a lot of different other countries around the world, such as China and Russia and India, Iran. There's a wide range. And so once we got the tools implemented, being able to do packet captures, and even though the IPS system hadn't been upgraded at the time, we were still able to pull all those packet captures down, get them into Splunk, and being able to analyze. And what we noticed is we had tons of Bitcoin miners on like all of these government host machines that were just running constantly to generate revenue for the adversaries or bad guys. There was cases of ransomware that we saw, that systems that no one had used in a long time, or they just quit using because they didn't know what was wrong with it. And so we saw a lot of different attacks all in the network, and it's all because the state had no visibility up until that initiative was pushed to say, hey, there was like Russia meddling in the election, and we need to make sure that we have cybersecurity. And before that, it appeared that the state had no control over security. They had no idea what was coming in their network. They had very old security appliances that at the time, 2004, the 10 gigs per second would have been sufficient. You had 4 of those across all of the routers. But, we're in 2016 and all of that data has quadrupled, and you have social media now and tons of things. So we're just missing a ton of traffic. So I thought it was very interesting that all of these attacks all of those things had been on the systems for so long. We don't know how long they had been on there until we were able to get additional visibility. But before I left, we still didn't understand how large, or the scope of how big this thing was, and how many systems are out there where someone was able to get in and bypass the one security system that they had, and they had buried themselves into a system and was able to put safeguards up so they couldn't be detected in the future. And even though we were trying to get CrowdStrike deployed on all of the systems, it became a very daunting task because we had to work with other agencies, and other agencies had their own opinions of what they wanted to do. And since we couldn't control what another agency did, for example, Department of Wildlife or the Department of Transportation, we would have to just say, hey, these are our best recommendations. And there wasn't a lot we could do. Even though we saw the traffic, we couldn't control their systems. So it became like, wow, this is such a huge problem. And it seems like every agency has their own agenda or the way that they want to go about things. So it was like a constant notification every day, like, hey, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, and we need you to fix this, and this system compromised, it needs to be taken offline. And it sometimes would take weeks, and I think that's pretty scary because you're dealing with government systems that have classified information, and the people who are responsible for making sure these systems are secure are either not trained, they're not knowledgeable, they have old systems, or there's politics in play of what vendor that they should go with. And we have to do, there's all this red tape. Well, we would love to go with that vendor, but we have to do a POV, and we have to have 3 different customers, and then we have to have them present it to us, and then we make some type of offer, and we accept whoever gave us the cheaper deal, even though that might not always be the best case there to do that. Sometimes spending a little more, you get a better product. But uh, I don't work there anymore. I think they're on the right track, but it was pretty scary that, the people who you think would have like the greatest security and they have everything figured out and everyone else is sort of behind. The same people who created the internet is like so far behind when it comes to the private sector and making sure the systems are secure. Um, and to that point, I remember our payroll system was still on DOS, and there's not a lot of systems that modern security appliances, work with DOS. So some of those systems are just like sideloaded into a basement somewhere, and hopefully no one ever, is able to tap into them. But I just thought it was pretty interesting that there was not a lot of security until we got there, and then it was still a very hard task to get other agencies to comply with what the Department of Technology wanted.